In a speech at Netroots Nation in New Orleans, New York gubernatorial candidate Cynthia Nixon went after the Democratic Party establishment pretty hard. She not only called them out for tipping the scales in primaries across the country against progressives specifically, but she also called out their corporatism and reliance on large multinational corporations. And, I mean, she's really proving to us that she's the real deal. She's using her name recognition to spread this message that we've all been desperately trying to get across to the Democratic Party establishment. Take a look.
The Democratic establishment doesn't like primaries. They think challenging incumbents hurts the party. I disagree. I think it helps the party. I think that centrist corporate Democrats hurt the party. And I think they need to be held accountable. And I think the primary is the most effective way to do that. We are witnessing an incredible moment for the progressive movement right now. People are rejecting the status quo and establishment Democrats and a party leadership that is so often whiter and wealthier and more male than the party base. And that is why thousands of progressives all over America are running for office this year. Many of us are women, many of us for the first time. Because we have realized if we want things to change, finally, we are going to have to step up and do it ourselves. And this movement that we are building around the country isn't just about the next election. It's about offering a vision of the way things could work if only we had the leadership and the political courage to make that vision a reality. Because it can't just be business as usual anymore. We have to turn the system upside down. We have to uproot the broken establishment, and we have to usher in a new generation of leadership. We have to transform the Democratic Party into a vehicle not just for corporations, not just for Wall Street, but a vehicle for all working people in this country. And I'm tired of a Democratic establishment that meddles in primaries, that puts their thumb on the scale, that picks candidates based on nothing more than their ability to fundraise from big donors. I am tired of a Democratic establishment that warns candidates not to run on single-payer health care, that tells us we have to stop talking about abolishing ICE because it doesn't poll well. This is the same Democratic establishment that once upon a time told us not to talk about civil rights, or same-sex marriage, or abortion, or a $15 minimum wage. This is the same Democratic establishment that says we can't win with candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because she's too far to the left. I have to say to them, please, please. Maybe you have forgotten, but I haven't forgotten, and the people in this room haven't forgotten what happened in 2016. A lack of moderation was not the problem. We tried it their way, and we lost to a racist extremist. If Democrats are going to win this year, it is not enough to just be better than Donald Trump. We can't just give people something to vote against. We have to give them something that they want to show up and vote for.
Now, I would love to toot my own horn here and say, look, she must be watching the Humanist Report, because these are the same arguments I've been making all along, but odds are she just has common sense and sees the writing on the wall. Centrism isn't going to win. I want to go to her specific quotes here because I think she makes excellent points that obviously I've stated before. She says, "A lack of moderation was not the problem. We tried it their way and we lost to a racist extremist." Look, that's exactly true. Now, last week on the show, I talked about Mitch Landrieu, who claimed that radical centrism really was the party's ticket to victory in 2018 and 2020. But again, nobody is excited for radical centrism because radical centrism, it doesn't have a meaningful effect on people's lives in practice. It doesn't. It makes elites feel good because they can endorse milquetoast policies and not offend their corporate donors. But in actuality, nobody's going to come out and try to thwart voter ID laws and voter suppression across the country and gerrymandering, all to get nothing in return. If you want voters to pay the costs associated with voting, you've got to make sure you give them a damn good reason to get out and vote for you. And centrists don't do that. Hillary Clinton didn't do that. And we just tried it 2 years ago, 2016, not that long ago. So the overall takeaway should be for every single individual who's rational, who thinks with their head and not their wallet, is that, okay, we tried centrism. We can never go back to that ideology. We have to embrace progressivism because clearly our base is leaving us and they're not, our plan to win over Republicans clearly is not working at all. I mean, what idiot, honestly, who knows anything about politics would try to win over the center at a time when we have hyperpolarization in American politics? Now, she also criticized the Democratic Party establishment for, quote, putting their thumb on the scale. And she said that they end up picking and favoring candidates based on nothing more than their ability to fundraise from big donors. And that's absolutely true. Again, see, the reason why we're not excited over candidates who take PAC money and money from large multinational corporations is because we know that they're not going to be looking out for us. Once you take that money, you become bought off. Once you accept help from health industry lobbyists and private prison lobbyists, they've got you. There's no turning back. Once they're in your ear, you're going to be listening to them more than you'll be listening to your own constituents. And even if it's the case that you take that money and you think at the time, I'm not going to sell out, I'm going to take this money now anyways, but when I get to Congress, I'm going to fight against them. No, that's not the way that this works. We've seen time and again that money leads to corruption. And as I usually do, I'll cite the 2014 Princeton University study by Dr. Gillens and Page. And what did they find? They found that our country effectively functions as an oligarchy. Well, when you look at policy outcomes preferred by normal Americans and juxtapose that with elites and business interests, you'll see that normal citizens have a statistically insignificant impact on policy outcomes, whereas elites and special interests, they actually do have a huge influence on policy outcomes. Now, can you guess why that is? It's because they're bankrolling these candidates. They're making their electoral success more likely by funding them. And it's just human nature to want to look out for the people that looked out for you and helped you out. So, I mean, they have to get it through their thick skulls that we're not going to tolerate pro-corporate candidates that they want to shove down our throats. These individuals within the party, the Democratic Party establishment, they're not dumb. I don't believe they're dumb at all. I think that they're just disingenuous and self-interested, and, these strategists who are giving these Democrats the worst advice ever. They want to keep their jobs, so they'll keep telling them the same bad ideas and regurgitating these same, strategies that have led to the party's defeat across the country. I mean, they lost over 1,000 seats. I know that progressives say this all the time, but it's such a remarkable fact that we can't not emphasize it because it proves how awful the Democratic Party has become. We essentially have two right-wing parties. We have a center-right party and a far-right extremist proto-fascist party in this country. And that's no longer acceptable. We're standing up and we're saying that left-wingers need a party. So I can't possibly cover everything that Cynthia Nixon said, since really everything she said was just so remarkable, but I do really want to commend her, and I'm truly hopeful that if anyone can pull off an upset in New York, it's going to be someone like her. I know that the polls don't look great, but at the same time, I mean, the polls didn't look great for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. In 2016, everybody thought that Donald Trump would lose, and Hillary was ahead in the polls by, a few digits, but nonetheless, she was ahead, and Donald Trump still won. So don't put too much stock into polls. If you're in New York, just get out and vote. If you truly want someone who's going to represent you, I think she's shown that she's the real deal. She's not taking corporate money. So we all know who she's going to represent, the people. So I'm just so thankful that there are so many progressives running. And I've said this before when talking with, congressional candidates. But back in 2016, I think that really you can count the number of progressives, really specifically progressive Bernie-crats running on one hand, right? There was Tim Canova, there was Alex Law, there was, who was it? Olympia Snow, Zephyr Teachout. There wasn't very many. But now, I can't even keep track of how many progressives are running. And that's a really, really good problem to have. Because the fact that there are so many people running across the country, it really shows the power that progressives have, and the influence that we have. And it's because our ideas are so popular that they're common sense, right? To not be in favor of Medicare for all when it will cost less than our current for-profit system. You can't not argue in favor of that unless you want to look like a disingenuous prick. So that's why so many people are running, and I'm so thankful that people like Cynthia Nixon are finally speaking out and calling out the Democratic Party establishment, because they've been in power, and that's been really bad for actual lefties because they've led the party off of a cliff, and now it's time for them to step aside and allow the next generation of progressives to take over, because we actually know what we're doing and we actually want to win, whereas they don't.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.